Good evening. Welcome. This is Sportscenter here in the nation's capital. I'm Scott Van Pelt. Conference championships in the National Football League are set. The local squad, left hand up, Commanders, head to the Link for an NFC East battle, part 3, with the Eagles, while the Buffalo Bills will head to Arrowhead, two very familiar foes as they try to derail Kansas City's quest to be the first ever three-peat champions in the National Football League. Post-game of the Ravens-Bills on the way. We begin with the best thing I saw today, which gives you a chance to see a snow game and reference some history. Fourth quarter, it's Saquon's time, a 7-point game, and there goes Barkley, 78 yards, just the second player in NFL history with multiple rushing touchdowns of 60-plus yards in a playoff game. And as you sit there on a Sunday night, you're asking yourself, who was the other? Well, I'm fixing to tell you. Your boy, Bud Angsman. 1947 NFL championship game. Where's Bud? There he is. They were the Cardinals then. Look at him go. Elmer Bud Angsman. 70-yard touchdown. Incidentally, they knocked off the Eagles 78 years apart in the snow in Philly, and they had to survive a furious comeback from the Rams. That full highlight is on the way, but to the game that just went final in Western New York. It was billed as a showdown between the two MVP favorites. It was a whole lot more than that. On a snow day, Mac Hollins does what he does. The mad scientist arrives and ready for the beach. Very first drive of the game, Baltimore. Jackson finds Isaiah Likely, 39-yard gain. Rashad Bateman has become a touchdown scoring machine this year. There's another. And just like that, that was the Ray Lewis tweet, and that was the Baltimore score. Just like that, right back at you. What a find here on 3rd and 8 as Josh Allen finds Khalil Shakir. And Buffalo's driving. Ray Davis into the end zone. Both teams get 7 on their first drive. Playoffs, though, defense is going to be a big part of this one. Jackson looking deep for Bateman. Picked off by Taylor Rapp. Costly error there. But not really, because Buffalo doesn't score. Big fumble here. And there goes Von Miller. And we'll get back to this highlight because Damar Hamlin has thrown on a headset. And Damar, hey, it's Scott Van Pelt here on SportsCenter. Can you hear me?
Bro, they're taking too long.
Can you hear me? Damar, it's Scott. Can you hear me? Hey, Damar, it's Scott Van Pelt. Can you hear me?
I don't hear nobody, bro. I'm about to dip.
Okie doke. He's going to dip. Good times. Damar, it's Scott. Can you hear me? Back to the highlight. Why wouldn't we? One of these days, we'll get it all figured out. There goes Allen into the end zone. And Buffalo leads 14-7. It's now 14-10. Allen goes deep here on 3rd and 5. Is that OPI or DPI? I guess it depends on which side you're pulling for. That is a pass interference call. Coach Harbaugh, as you might guess, disagrees. On 3rd and 2, there goes Allen into the end zone. It's 21-10, and Buffalo is getting the ball coming out of the locker room. They haven't lost when they've had the lead at halftime since last year's divisional round against the Chiefs. It's 21-13 into the third, and here goes Derrick Henry, who had a monster game in their earlier meeting in Baltimore. There he goes for 17, and here he goes for a touchdown, and it was pretty much on the ground. It was bully ball. Now you're going to go for 2 to try to tie it up. You wonder, after the sort of tenor of the drive, do you hand it to 22? No. They send Henry out, and this pass is deflected. I believe Milano got his hands on it there, and so it remains a 2-point deficit after a Bills field goal. Under 9 to go. Jackson finds Mark Andrews and has it stripped by Terrell Bernard, who punches it out. A tremendous play here as he goes hunting for the ball. We've said it all season long. It's become such a skill in the NFL, punching the ball out, and that gives the ball to Buffalo. Key sequence here. They're down at the goal line. 3rd and goal again. Baltimore's ready for Allen up the middle. They stuff him. Big decision. Do you go for it or do you kick the field goal? They kick the field goal to go up 8. So Baltimore can't beat them, but they could tie them. They're going to need a lot to go right. There goes Jackson rolling, and he finds Tylan Wallace for a huge gain on an ad lib. A couple of plays later, it's Jackson who's got time, and he finds Mark Andrews. Big gain of 19. Very next play, all day, he's floating left, floats back right. He's got a man. That man is Isaiah Likely, and that's a touchdown, and Baltimore's going to have a chance to tie it up. Buffalo's got 2 timeouts. They're going to have to drive to score to win this game if Baltimore gets the 2. They roll it out. There's Andrews, and he's wide open, and he bobbles it, and then nearly grabs it, but loses it off his thigh as he slides down in the snow. Andrews, who had been brilliant throughout the second half of the season, a couple of costly drops. The onside kick, they've got to have it. They do not get it. Sewell Douglas is on it for Buffalo. They ran for a first down on the first play. Then it's knees. And then the 2 MVP favorites with an embrace as it's Buffalo who moves on. And the win for Buffalo will set up the 4th meeting between Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen in the playoffs, which is tied for the 2nd most matchups between opposing starting quarterbacks in the Super Bowl era. The only 2 who met more often, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Tim Hasselbeck is here in studio as he is weekly, and man, you hope for a game that has that, and then in the end, the shame of it is that it's the drop from Andrews, right. And you couldn't have had a play better set up for a more reliable receiver, and it's a drop. I don't know what else there is to say beyond that.
Well, and I think it's good to note that, Scott, because what will happen is we'll get further and further away from the game. Some of the stuff that we talked about watching games last week is, people are going to start the narrative of quarterbacks that can win and can't win and all of that stuff, right? Yeah. Listen, this was a game that really was honestly not all about the quarterbacks. It was both teams trying to run the football, that stuff. But Lamar did give his team a chance at the end. And it's that right there. It could be a tie football game, and then who knows what happens. There's still plenty of time left.
That's the key point to make, and that's why I tried to make it over the highlight. Buffalo has about $1.50, and they've got 2 timeouts, and Bassett hit a couple of field goals in this game. One was pretty lengthy, and we know what happened last year against Kansas City. Missed one, but they'd have had time. As it turns out, Baltimore drops the 2-point conversion. They don't get the onside kick. They lose this game. I want to go back to the sequence there where Buffalo has it down knocking on the door. And I understand, look, everyone wants to go for 4th down every single time. And if you're Washington, you do. But if you're Buffalo in that situation, you ran Josh up the middle on 3rd, you got stuffed. You kick a field goal and you go up 8. If they go for it and get stopped, a touchdown, you're trailing. It's easy with hindsight. I'm just in real time. What was your thought of how that sequence played?
Well, as we were sitting there, I said, you have to kick it because at least at that point, there's going to be a point where if it doesn't go the way you want it to go, the game's tied and you're probably getting the football back. I mean, that's the worst case scenario in that. And so I think you have to kick it there, which is what they did. Now, look, they ran Josh on 2nd down and on 3rd down. So they had run him a couple times. Look, if you were a little bit closer, and I think Romo was trying to make this point during the game, do you go with the quarterback sneak, something they've been so good at? But when it's 1.5 yards, I think that's way too much.
I think they're outside the 2.
Yeah, even worse, right? So now, for sure, you're kicking that field goal.
If you're Harbaugh and the Ravens and you see those numbers before the game, the 2 rushing touchdowns, you're like, ooh, okay. But $127 through the air, I think you probably take your chances if you're Baltimore, if those are Allen's numbers, don't you?
Absolutely you do. I mean, this was not a game dominated by Josh Allen. It wasn't. It was both teams trying to control the clock, trying to run the football. And then I think that it was both defenses playing pretty well, not giving up big plays, but the turnovers. That's the killer right there.
This time of year, and you see it throughout the weekend, right? Why does Kansas City win? Well, they managed to beat a team that didn't have any turnovers. So you had some missed kicks. You had some penalties that people that didn't impact the game drastically, but it's a conversation piece. Detroit turns the ball over a ton. That hasn't been what they've done. In this particular game, Baltimore's -3, and you have the drop that would have tied the game. Ultimately, you lose largely because that's why you lose this game, isn't it?
So when Baltimore watches the film, it's going to be brutal. So obviously the Andrews drop, which is a killer because of when it happens. But then also, the interception by Lamar. Obviously, this one didn't hurt him. He made that point in the highlight. But this fumble, which Von Miller ends up scooping up, can't make a bad situation worse. That's the coaching point for a quarterback. There goes Von Miller. They end up getting points off of that. The Andrews fumble obviously hurt them. The Henry drop,
right?
Earlier in the game, that wasn't good either. So, look, this wasn't Baltimore's best. And then I think you also have to give Buffalo some credit for how they defended Derrick Henry.
All right, hang tight for just a moment. I believe we've been able to establish that Damar Hamlin can hear us now, so we can have a conversation with the